Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this episode 3863 BN. Today's date is March 18th, 2026, and the title of the episode is Deep State Sleepers Expose. MAGA is a force that is destroying the deep state. Nothing can stop this. Let me ask you a question. You ever see something and instantly know it's going to turn heads? That's exactly what happened when I saw these Trump Never Surrender gold sneakers. These aren't subtle, and they're not supposed to be. Gold finish, red, white, and blue details. Never surrender right on the shoe. You put these on, people definitely notice, period. What surprised me most? They're actually comfortable. Solid build, lightweight, and wearable. Not just something you buy and leave in the box. These are made to be worn and seen. And the message hit. Never Surrender isn't just branding, it's an attitude. Whether you're out running errands or showing up somewhere you want to make a statement, these do exactly that without saying a word. They're also a killer gift. If you got a Trump supporter, a collector, or someone who likes bold, unapologetic style, this is a win. They're unique, they're different, they're just awesome. One more thing that matters. These are a limited run, numbered pairs. Once they're gone, they're gone. If you want to grab a pair, our loyal audience will get 30% discount while inventory lasts. Go to themagaoffers.com/X22. That is themagaoffers.com/X22. And if you rather order by phone or talk to someone directly, you can call 855-550-MAGA. And be sure to use my code for even more savings when you call. Again, that number is 855-550-6242 or 855-550-MAGA. If these speak to you, don't wait on this. Inventory is moving fast, and once these sell out, that's it. Grab your pair and make a statement. Visit themagaoffers.com/X22 or call 855-550-MAGA and give them promo code X22 for an even bigger deal. Or just click the link in the description. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech fake news, the puppet masters, you can see the deep state players, they're trying to do whatever they possibly can to break up MAGA. And you could see it's definitely a psyop that they are running, and they are now exposing sleepers to try to push this. And what's very interesting, there's kind of one way that you can figure out that this is a psyop, because John Brennan, he came out and let everyone know that MAGA isn't sticking together anymore. It is now breaking apart. It's falling apart. And I do believe this has been their mission to try to break MAGA apart, because MAGA is a force that is destroying the deep state players. They know this. They understand this. And this is why they went all out now to try to say MAGA is done. MAGA is falling apart. People aren't for MAGA. People aren't with Trump anymore. It's all baloney. Everything that Trump is doing is exactly what the people wanted. They voted for this. Let's see, did they want Trump to deport people? Absolutely. Do they want Trump to close the border? Absolutely. Did they want Trump to build a wall on the border? Absolutely. Did they want him to lower the fuel prices? Absolutely. Did they want him to make the economy great? Absolutely. Did they want him to have peace across the world? Absolutely. Now, once again, people can say, well, he doesn't have peace right now. Well, sometimes you have to remove what the deep state put into place so you can actually reach that goal. Remember, the deep state players, what did they do? They made these problems so they could create a solution. And their solution was never going to fix the problem. But again, they created terrorism. They created Iran. They created Venezuela. They created the Cold War. They created a housing problem. They created a debt problem. They created a border problem. They created a crime problem. They created all these things. What is Trump doing? He's solving all the things they created. This is what they don't like. Just like we discussed just the other day. The drug problem is because of what the deep state have done. The war on drugs was a war against all the others so they can then put their people in place to move the drugs. The same thing with the oil, the same thing with human trafficking, child trafficking, the same with pretty much everything. So Trump, he is now showing the world that all these problems could be taken care of very easily. Now, sometimes it's much easier to do, like going after Maduro, taking him out, having the vice president there work with Trump. Other problems are a little bit more complex. And it takes a very strong person and a strong hand to shut down what the deep state players have set up. Like Iran, for example. Iran wasn't just going to go quietly into the night. They weren't going to negotiate. Trump tried it. Trump always tries to give the deep state players the benefit of the doubt. Work with me. I'll give you the nuclear fuel. I'll do all these things. We don't have to go down this path. But you have to remember, the deep state players, they're fighting for their lives. They rather have war. They rather have a battle. They rather have this because, again, with every battle, with every event, they could try to use it against Trump. But in the end, Trump is going to win. Because, again, this is not an endless war. This is not a problem that they created and Trump's just going to continue with the problem. Trump is going to solve what they created. So he's solving the problem that they created in the Middle East, that they supported in the Middle East. He's basically bringing it to an end, just like he brought Venezuela to the end, just like he's bringing Cuba to an end, just like he brought the illegals to the end. I mean, let's just use a very simple explanation here. Remember when Biden was in office and he said there's no way to stop the illegals? They're just coming in over the border, and the only way to stop it is the Republicans. If we don't pass a law, we'll never be able to stop these people from coming in. We'll never be able to deport them. It's just too impossible. Think about what they did. You know, you understand that it was a lie because you were awake. But go back in time. The debt problem can't be taken care of. Do you really think the debt problem can't be taken care of? That's a lie that they fed you. The crime in our cities, we can't figure it out. We don't know what to do. We need more money. The homelessness, we can't figure it out. We're trying to solve it. We just need more money. The war, the terrorism with Iran, we can't figure it out. We don't know what to do. We could never have peace in the Middle East. It's all made up by the deep state players. Trump is showing you every step of the way. You want this problem solved? Well, this problem I have to approach in this way. You might not like it. You might think we're going to an endless war, but you have to remember, I'm an outsider. I'm the guy they tried to kill. I'm the guy who they tried to stop every step of the way because they didn't want me to do this. And now they're trying to spin it to say, hey, look what he's doing. He's starting another endless war just like we did in the last couple of years. But it's very, very different this time around. Trump doesn't want a war. He's actually doing this to have peace. Just like when everyone thought he was going to bring the troops onto Venezuela's soil and we were going to take over the country and we're going to have forcible regime change and we were going to have the troops there. Trump didn't have any of this because the problem was easily solvable. The same thing with Iran. It's a little bit more difficult. We just can't go in there and take the Ayatollah because, again, we need to remove what was set up to protect the deep state proxies. That's really what they are. And Trump is removing it all and basically setting up the allies, who are not really our allies, setting them up, even though they tried to trap them in all of this. You see, what they did was they tried to trap them in the Strait of Hormuz. They thought that if Trump tries this, there'll be inflation. The economy will be destroyed. He'll never be able to take it. He'll never be able to keep it. But actually, he turned it all around. And now you could see the allies, they're struggling with all of this because Trump has leverage. He has the upper hand. He has the power. They do not. And you could see every step of the way, it took 24 hours for Rutte to say, okay, now I'm talking to the allies and they might be assisting with the Strait of Hormuz. Even if they don't, Trump still has them where he wants them because they realize now that he was able to destroy the boats, destroy the missiles. The mines are going to be removed if there are any in there. And they realize, wait a minute, if we don't do anything, Trump is then just going to leave it. And this is going to be a complete and utter disaster in this area because it only affects us. It doesn't really affect the United States. You see, the United States is not going to be affected by what happens in the Strait of Hormuz because we don't use that oil. Asia does. Europe does. China does. So think about what's happening. And he's also basically taking away the cheap oil from China and actually bringing the price up. And China's going to have to pay a premium now. This is going to be very, very interesting. We'll be talking a lot more about this a little bit later. But first, let's talk about the Oscars for a second, because like we said just the other day, the viewership is dropping and dropping and dropping, which tells us one thing. The people are waking up and the people are no longer following these idiots. Wall Street Maverick put this out and said, the audience cares less and less each year about celebrities and their political rants during award shows. In 2010, 41.3 million watched. 2015, 37.3. 2020, 23.6. 2025, 19.7. And now in 2026, 17.9. And this number is going to drop again next year, probably by quite a bit, because people are now waking up and people are starting to understand who they truly are. And they're not basically in line with the American people, the majority of American people. They're in line with the deep state players, a very small, tiny group. Remember, they needed the fake news. They needed the media. They needed Hollywood. They needed all of this to make you think that they're larger than life, that everyone was going along with them. Now the people are starting to understand that nobody was going along with them, and the people are not on their side. And every year it proves it over and over and over, which means a lot more people are waking up. Just like people woke up to what was happening on the border, how people started to wake up that we can't have all these people just coming in using our resources. People started to say, you know what, we need to deport these people. And whatever the fake news puts out now, when they try to convince you that these people aren't criminals, they haven't broken the law. Well, yes, if they broke a law in another country and they came here and they weren't vetted, they're still criminals. Plus, they came into this country illegally. They broke a U.S. law. So they committed a crime in another country and they broke a law in this country. Homeland Security put this out and said, meet one of the media's non-criminals. Kiel Christian Alvarez Pereira, a criminal illegal alien from Brazil, wanted in her home country for murder charges. Because she lacks a criminal history in the U.S., the media counts this as a non-criminal arrest. Nearly 70% of ICE arrests are of criminal illegal aliens with pending charges or convictions in the U.S. Those who committed crimes in foreign countries but lack a rap sheet in the U.S. are not counted in the statistics. Well, if they came into this country, they broke the law. So basically, they did commit a crime. But again, do you really want an individual that murdered someone or raped someone in another country in this country? No, you do not. So you can see how this is all completely and utterly flawed. Just like when they say, oh, Obama deported a lot more people than Trump. No, in the statistics, what they did was everyone that they turned around at the border who didn't even enter the country, they count that as a deportation. That's not a deportation. That is, you're not allowing this person into the country and you're turning them away. It's like if someone knocks at your door and wants to come in and you say, no, I'm not opening my door. You can't come in here. Did you throw them out of your house? No, you didn't. They were never in your house. You turned them away, but it shouldn't count as you threw them out of your house. And you have to remember, they use these statistics to try to convince everyone that something's happening when it really isn't. And this is how they manipulate everything. But I think those days are coming to an end, and it's happening very, very quickly. And you can see there's a change of guard in DHS. Trump has nominated Mark Wayne Mullen. We know that Chrissy Noem, she's going to head up the Shield of Americas, which is a very, very important job. And Mark Wayne Mullen now is being grilled by Congress. And Trump put out on Truth that the Border Patrol Union, the NBPC, they completely and utterly support and endorse Mark Wayne Mullen. So right there, that should tell you everything you need to know. And of course, there are certain individuals within Congress, like Rand Paul. He doesn't want Mark Wayne Mullen to be in this position, but I do believe in the end, Mark Wayne Mullen will probably get in and he will be confirmed in this position. And then we'll have Kristi Noem heading up the Shield of Americas, and Mark Wayne Mullen to handle the rest of the deportations that are definitely coming. Because you have to remember, as we get closer and closer to the midterms, what do you think the deep state players are going to do when they realize they are not going to win the midterms? Remember, we have to get the House and the Senate. There's no halvesies here. Because again, if we do halvesies, Trump, we the people, cannot complete the rest of our plan. So I do believe this time around, Trump is going all out. And one way or another, I do believe people are going to have to show voter ID when they go to the polls, either with the Save America Act or with an executive order showing that the elections were rigged. It's a national security threat, and people have to use voter ID. So no matter which way you look at it, I do believe we're heading in that direction. We'll be talking a little bit more about that a little bit later in this report. First, look what Europe is doing right now, and you can see Ursula von der Leyen. She just announced that Europe is launching an EU Inc., the 28th regime, a fully digital framework that enables entrepreneurs to create and register business anywhere in the EU, with their data then shared with relevant administrations and supported via the new EU business wallet. So that's very, very interesting. So what are they actually really setting up, if you really think about it? Well, I think they're setting up something that is much, much different than everyone thinks it is. So what are the potential risks of the EU Inc. 28th regime? Centralized EU business wallet and data sharing with administrations could heighten privacy risks, data breaches, or expanded surveillance. Optional EU rules might let firms bypass stricter national labor laws. Example, worker board reps in Germany, Austria, risking a race to the bottom and two-tier workforce per trade union concerns like the ETUC. Further centralizes business regulation in Brussels, eroding national sovereignty on taxes, insolvency, or operations. Fully digital 48-hour setup adds cyber vulnerabilities and could sideline those without reliable tech access. It's optional, aims to ease scaling, but critics see fragmentation or weakened standards persisting. So basically, this is all part of their surveillance censoring system. And think about it, when this is centralized and you have businesses, you have people in businesses, does this make it a lot easier to control them? Absolutely. And this is what they're trying to do right now. This is all part of their plan to remove the sovereignty from all these countries. And I think this is why Slovakia, Hungary, and you're going to see a lot more countries start to really push back. But Italy is doing something very, very different. And I wouldn't be surprised in the long run if Italy says, you know something, I see where this is all headed. We're out. But look what Italy is doing. And this reminds me of birthright citizenship. Wall Street Apes put this out. Italy is restricting who can become Italian, changing citizenship rules. The policy right of blood dates back to the founding of the country, and it's meant that anyone with Italian ancestors was themselves entitled to Italian citizenship. You can only claim citizenship if a parent or a grandparent is born in Italy, and that relative must not be a dual citizen. Applicants will also have to demonstrate proficiency in Italian language. The change was motivated by perceived abuse of the system, with the government saying people were getting Italian citizenship as a novelty or for easier travel instead of a genuine interest in the country. This should be mandatory in America. And that is absolutely right. And I think this is why Trump now is moving towards birthright citizenship. This is why we're removing everyone just coming over the border and there's no vetting involved. And there's going to be stricter rules in place in America to become a citizen. Because again, if you're going to become a citizen, just like in Italy, just here, you need to show that you're going to contribute to America, to the people of this country. We don't need someone coming in that's a criminal. We don't need someone coming in that's a drug trafficker, human trafficker, a rapist. Those people do not contribute. Those people are a drain. They're viruses. They suck the life out of the country. And they hurt people, they kill people, they rape people. So we don't need those type of people whatsoever. And we could see everything is about to change. And I do believe this is what Trump is moving towards. Now, when you start to look at what's happening with Iran, you can see the deep state players, they're very, very angry. All these people are out there saying, oh, war, oh, we shouldn't have this. Again, This is not a war that the deep state players have created in the past. This is a war to remove the system that the deep state players put into place. If you think of it in those terms, Trump is using our military to basically remove the deep state proxy system that they set up. Trump is using the military to destroy the terrorist nation that they set up. Now, other countries are a little bit easier. Cuba, for instance, is going to be a little bit easier. Venezuela was a little bit easier. But Ukraine and Iran, they're a little bit tougher to do. So this is why we had to bring the military there, and this is what Trump is doing. Plus, yes, there's other agendas associated with this, and it has to do with oil, it has to do with choke points, it has to do with the Strait of Hormuz, it has to do with Lloyd's of London, it has to do with other areas. But you can see what Trump is doing. Again, you can't control it unless you remove the terrorist organization. But DNI Tulsi Gabbard's, her latest threat assessment says the intelligence community assessed that Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, Pakistan have been researching and developing an array of novel, advanced, or traditional missile delivery systems with nuclear and conventional payloads that put our homeland within range. So we have Ratcliffe out there saying the same thing. We have Tulsi Gabbard saying the same exact thing, which should tell you everything you need to know. The Last Refuge responded to this and said, for those of you who are only just starting to catch on, North Korea has had nuclear missiles for a long time. They are from Beijing. They are Chinese missiles. President Trump cut through the pretending left to him by Bush or Obama, and instead of pretending that Kim Jong-un was not a proxy of Chairman Xi, he directly framed policy to deal with it. Trump's relationship with Chairman Kim was directly due to Chairman Xi's power over him. Trump cut that Gordian knot and even went so far as to personally visiting Kim, went into the DMZ to prove his confidence in Kim, and left Chairman Xi frustrated with a pretending panda face. North Korea is to Beijing as Kiev was to Washington, D.C. Quit pretending. So, yes, this is what Trump is doing right now. He's removing these proxy nations. He freed Kim Jong-un. China had a hold on him. How about Iran? Did China kind of have a hold on Iran? Yes, Iran needed China. China was funding Iran. They had a deal. So what is Trump doing? He's severing this. And now the deep state players don't have the proxy. Remember, China was supposed to be the next powerhouse of their new world. You see, Europe was going to be a third world nation. Multiple nations. Green energy, windmills, solar power, electric vehicles, no manufacturing. Just control of the people. Same thing with the United States. Because after the war, who was going to be in total power? It was going to be China. Trump now is shutting all of this down. And think about it. The Ayatollah had homes in France, had home in Germany, Switzerland, etc. This is a big reason Trump is going to pull the U.S. out of NATO. He's exposing all of these people. So once again, you can see that the Ayatollah, the regime, the proxy terrorist organization that was set up on purpose, and they were protecting it. And they thought they were going to use the Strait of Hormuz and the power that they had over the Strait of Hormuz against Trump. It boomeranged on them. We'll be talking about that in just a sec. But we've come to learn that Esmail Khatib, the Islamist regime's minister of the intelligence, he has now been eliminated. And the elimination is a major earthquake for the Islamic Republic because this individual was the chief architect of the crackdown on the Iranian people. He was the central nervous system of the regime's iron fist policy, responsible for crushing dissent and coordinating the hunt for opposition leaders. This high-level assassination of a senior Islamist regime figure has several implications. It reinforces the idea that there is a systematic compromise of the elite and the presence of moles within the inner sanctum, which will inevitably lead to a wave of paranoia among senior officials. This creates a command vacuum because Khatib was the bridge between the clerical leadership and the besieged forces, making it more difficult to oppress the Iranian people. It demonstrates yet again that the Islamic security state is not as powerful as it portrays itself to be. It is a strong signal to the Iranian people that their oppressors can be defeated and that even untouchable senior officials are actually deeply vulnerable. Think about that. And think about what's happening now in Iran. Remember, we've had a blackout for quite a while, so people really aren't getting the true story of what's happening on the streets. But more information now is coming out. Visegrad24 put this out and said, more and more reports of drive-by shooting attacks against besieged militia checkpoints in Iran. The regime is under pressure and more besieged militia's members are refusing to show up for work in the morning. Marina Fowl put this out and said, Iran's security forces are reportedly falling apart. Police move checkpoints under highway bridges to avoid Israeli strikes. Others are sleeping in vehicles, mosques, stairwells, or pleading with residents to let them hide in their buildings. When security forces move into residential buildings, neighbors evacuate out of fear Israel will strike it. Meanwhile, ordinary Iranians are sending tips to Israel about besieged checkpoint locations. Israel then uses loitering drones to hunt them down, killing 2 to 4 at a time. Think about what is happening right now. The regime is losing their power little by little. And think about it. They hit the banking institutions. Payday is coming up. What happens when security forces aren't paid? Are they going to do the job? Are they going to be loyal to the regime? When they see the regime is being taken out, now they're not getting pay. What do you think happened next? I think we all know. But think about how Trump now basically put the spotlight on NATO, all the allies, and basically he's making an example of them. Clendelson put this out and said, Trump just pretty much confirmed he's making an example out of NATO. We don't need any help with the Strait of Hormuz. It was a test to see who would be willing to help. Trump is using this opportunity to show the world how we don't need NATO, but they need us. And it looks like the head of NATO, Secretary General Mark Rutte, is now making a call to all the allies saying, listen, do you really want the world to see that the United States doesn't need NATO, that we're not assisting in all of this? So after pressure, and what is it taking, 24 hours or so? NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says allies are rushing to find a way to secure the Strait of Hormuz. I've been in contact with many allies. Strait has to open. Allies are discussing how to do that. What is the best way to do it? They're working to find a way forward. Rutte knows Trump means business, and Trump just threatened to pull away from the strait entirely and let it all fall on the allies. Now, think about it. Trump did say, what happens if I just pull away? So Trump is letting them know that he has all the leverage. We'll be talking about that in just a sec. And Trump wants to remind everyone that all these different countries, remember all the words they used. Remember, he says, for all those absolute fools out there, Iran is considered by everyone to be a number one state sponsor of terror. We're rapidly putting them out of business. Now, remember, all these countries kept saying that, oh, Iran is strong. Iran is they have tons of terrorists. They're a state sponsor of terrorism. Hey, you know what's interesting? We've all seen the headlines about those miracle weight loss shots, but the 2026 data is officially in, and it's a wake-up call. A major analysis revealed that once people stop the injections, they regain an average of 60% of their weight within a year. Even worse, most of the gain is pure fat, but the muscle they lost stays gone, leaving them with a crashed metabolism and a body that's functionally older than when they started. That's why I'm obsessed with today's sponsor, GLP-1 Elevate. Instead of using needles to override my system, it uses clinically studied plant-based ingredients like metabolate to help my body naturally boost its own hunger control signals. I get the same fullness and fewer cravings, but without the scary side effects or the metabolic rebound. It supports my goals while protecting my muscles so I can actually keep the results for good. To celebrate Valentine's Day, get 50% off GLP-1 Elevate at trimwithx22.com. Every order includes a complete support bundle with a free VIP coaching for life, a 60-day money-back guarantee, and free express shipping on subscriptions. Head over to trimwithx22.com now to claim your 50% discount before it expires, or just click the link in the description. They're too strong. They have too many missiles. They've been using this rhetoric over and over and over. They never had any motive of going in and removing this because this was their proxy army. Now Trump is removing it, and he's throwing this back in their face. Very, very interesting. And the other thing we could see is that, and Eric already put this out, the Israeli Air Force has just decimated the largest natural gas processing facility in Iran in a devastating blow to the regime. And this was approved by the U.S. If this keeps up, they're going to be in for a world of hurt. And it looks like they might have a blackout in Iran. And it looks like U.S. Central Command is removing the missiles along the shores because U.S. Central Command put this out, says U.S. forces successfully employed multiple 5,000-pound deep penetrating munitions on hardened Iranian missile sites along Iran's coastal near the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranian anti-ship cruise missiles at these sites posed a risk to international shipping in the strait. So basically, they are removing all the small little boats, they're removing all the missiles, and soon this whole area is going to be completely and utterly cleared. And this is being done so the ships can flow with no problem whatsoever. And you can see the balance of power in the Strait of Hormuz is shifting. Iran, which once was, people believed it controlled this vital waterway with its vast boats, now faces a shocking reality. The arrival of amphibious assault ship USS Tripoli at the head of a Marine Expeditionary Unit, including the 31st Reconnaissance Battalion, represents an unprecedented nightmare for the Iranian regime. The elite force of approximately 2,500 troops is moving at maximum speed toward the region, signaling Washington's shift from airstrikes to maybe a tactical force controlling Karg. So, with this development, all military options are on the table. And you could see that Trump now is going to basically maintain control over the entire area. Apple Lamps put this out and said, the Strait of Hormuz was supposed to end Trump's presidency. Iran blocked it. Oil spiked. Gas prices surged. The plan was simple: crush the American worker with inflation until the political pressure forced a retreat. But the trap inverted. The oil market has fractured into two tiers: $100 in America, $150 in Asia. China, India, Japan, South Korea, the nations that refused to send warships when Trump asked, are now paying 50% more per barrel than the country that launched the war. Demand destruction has started across Asia. Schools closing, workers sent home, petrol pumps running dry in Southeast Asia. Meanwhile, American refineries are actually increasing output, running on light, sweet crude that never touches Hormuz. Trump told them to help open the strait. Every single one refused. NATO said it wasn't their war. China negotiated selective passage from a destroyed regime. Japan declined. Australia declined. Now the strait is doing to them what it was designed to do to Trump. So basically, it completely failed. And then Trump put this out. I wonder what would happen if we finished off what's left of the Iranian terror state and let the countries that use it, we don't, be responsible for the so-called strait. That would get some of our non-responsive allies in gear and fast. President DJT. So why did he say this? Because the U.S. could go all in and completely destroy whatever is left of Iran's regime militarily, finish off the Iranian terror state. Then the U.S. walks away from policing the Strait of Hormuz. The countries that actually depend on it for oil imports would have to take over security themselves with their own navies and resources. You see, again, who's there? No one. So they would have to basically take control. And what happens if they take control? They'd have to pay huge new military costs. Patrolling and securing the Strait of Hormuz requires serious naval power. Most allies don't have the capability or willingness to do it alone or even in a coalition. Deploying forces means massive spending, logistic headaches, and domestic political backlash. Think about it. Who was doing that before? It was Iran. Did they have to pay Iran? No. Who funded it? China. Very interesting. Oil energy crisis. If the allies can't quickly secure the strait, oil flows stay disrupted. Europe, Japan, South Korea, and other importers would face prolonged sky-high energy prices, inflation, and economic damage. The U.S., as a net exporter, benefits relatively more from high oil prices. Broader economic insecurity hit. Higher global prices ripple into everything: manufacturing, transportation, heating. So let's see. They would have to get either oil from the Strait of Hormuz. If they can't, they would have to buy oil maybe from the U.S. At higher oil prices, the U.S. would benefit. So this shock would destroy those countries. So basically, everything they tried to do to Trump, he just turned it around, and now they're feeling the effect. Isn't that interesting? And look what they tried to do. While all this was going down, they went ahead and they activated a sleeper, Joe Kent. And he decided to go out there and let everyone know that he's not for this war because it's Israel-based. Now, this was done on purpose. Remember, they're running a psyop right now because what are they trying to do? They're trying to divide MAGA. That is the whole point of this. How do we know that this is true? John Brennan is involved. That's how we know. Ezra Cohen says, I've said this a few times before. As a political appointee, if you disagree with the president, you have a duty to vigorously argue your point in private. Once the commander-in-chief makes his decision, salute and move out. If you cannot execute the decision, you must resign. And do so silently. Respect the weight of the president's responsibility, which was given to him by the people. Do not undermine his ability to carry out his responsibility as commander-in-chief. And that's exactly what he is. It's the line of command. So basically, these individuals were brought in to the presidency by the president that was elected. These people weren't elected to these positions. And you could see everything that Joe Kent said in the letter goes against everything that he said before. And Trump just kind of blew him out of the water. He's pointing to a post that he put out on January 8th, 2020 from Joe Kent. Real Donald Trump, we should not sit and wait for the next attack. Wipe Iran's ballistic capabilities out and get our troops out of Iraq. They're only targets now. No U.S. WIA, KIA is a tribute to the professionalism of our military and intel professionals, not Iranian restraint. Very interesting, isn't it? And then if we just go back 3 months ago, Jacoby put this out. Joe Kent laid out on Sean Ryan's show just how much of an enemy and threat Iran is. Suddenly everything changed? Yeah. When you activate a sleeper, this is what happens. Katzert says, let me get this straight. Joe Kent suddenly quits and tries to damage Trump with a laughable letter claiming Iran is not a threat. Although there's gazillion tweets, sworn testimony, and interviews where he talks about how much of a threat Iran is. Then, magically 5 seconds later, he's booked on every Doomer Grifter show and high-dollar grifter event in the USA this week where they're all in unison scream for hours about how much they hate the Jews and say Zionists 1,000 times per hour, and then say $7,000 1,000 times more like a broken record. So that's kind of odd, don't you think? But I think the other thing, which pretty much sums all of this up, is what John Brennan did. John Brennan, since the resignation of Joe Kent, came out of the woodwork and said that because of this, MAGA, the base of MAGA, is now fracturing. So John Brennan right now came into the mix, letting everyone know because of this, the MAGA base is fracturing. He says his resignation in a very public way, I think, is designed to have an impact and send a signal the MAGA base of Trump's coalition is fracturing, that he's wanting to be, I think, one of the first individuals to do this, carry out a resignation like this so publicly in the midst of war, Brennan said. Was this a setup? If John Brennan is pointing this out, if John Brennan is specifically saying he did this publicly during this war, it means they're going to start to activate sleepers. That's what this means. The whole thing is one gigantic psyop. How do we know it's a psyop? Because they realize how strong MAGA is. It's a force that is destroying the deep state players. How do we know this? Well, think about it. This is coming from CNN. CNN doesn't want to show that MAGA is strong. And CNN is letting everyone know that MAGA GOP view of Trump is at 100%. If you are a member of MAGA in the GOP, you approve of Donald John Trump. 0% say that they disapprove. Now, MAGA approves of what is happening in Iran by 89%. Where is the fracturing? They're trying to fracture the movement. This is what they're trying to do. And with John Brennan coming out and saying all this, you know this is part of their mission, because they realize if MAGA stays together, they can't beat Trump. And guess what? MAGA is staying together. Apple Lamp says courts, Congress, oil, psyops, all deployed, all failed. So they burned Joe Kent. That single decision tells you everything. A sympathetic director sitting inside the National Counterterrorism Center is the holy grail of institutional insurgency. A man in that chair can shape threat assessment, slow walk intelligence, feed information to sympathetic lawmakers, and quietly suffocate a war effort from the inside without leaving a fingerprint. Joe Kent in that chair was worth more to the opposition than 1,000 Tucker Carlson monologues. You do not pull an asset like that and detonate him on social media unless the inside game is already dead. And it was dead. Trump had outrun the entire system. The machinery of internal resistance, the memos, the quiet obstructions, the shape briefings, all of it operates at institutional speed. Trump was operating at military speed. By the time a saboteur could slow walk an assessment, CENTCOM had already struck 7,000 targets, and the assessment was irrelevant. The war had outpaced the bureaucracy so completely that most powerful intelligence position in the counterterrorism apparatus couldn't touch it. So they pulled him out and used him as a weapon, the Israel card, a Gold Star Green Beret who lost his wife to an ISIS bomb in Syria, invoking her name, telling 72 million Americans the commander-in-chief was manipulated by a foreign lobby into a fraudulent war. That is the absolute ceiling. There is no bigger payload in the arsenal of psychological warfare against a sitting president. Nothing above it exists, which is exactly how you know the magazine is empty. Absolutely. Which means this individual wasn't getting information. This individual was out in the cold. This individual had nothing. And they pretty much activated this individual. Remember, Trump is his own man. He's the one calling the shots. He's directing all this. He's the one who went after Venezuela, who's negotiating with Cuba, who's negotiating with Mexico and Colombia, set up the shield of America. He's the one who is doing this. He's taking care of the Western Hemisphere. Now he's out in the Middle East. His first term, he established the Abraham Accords. He knew eventually he was going to go after Iran. Iran is the deep state proxy terrorist organization, just like Venezuela on the West Coast. He knew he was going to have to take care of it. Was he going to be able to fly in and just get the Ayatollah and take him away? No. Why? Because look what's happening. We killed the Ayatollah. Then the next person. Then the next person. Then the next person. Basically, they just keep electing the same exact people. So Trump knew from the very, very beginning he would have to go in there and decimate the entire regime. He knew that they could not exist. He knew he had to get rid of every single piece of equipment that they have. He knew he was going to have to take control of the Straight of Hormuz. He knew that he was going to have to take control of Karg. He knew that he was going to have to separate oil and basically separate the globalist system. Now we have two sets of oil prices. They tried to use this against Trump. They thought it would be, all lockstep, all in one. But again, this country's energy independent. Why do you think Trump made it energy independent? Why do you think we're not getting any oil from there? And it didn't work. It all completely and utterly fell apart. Who has the leverage? Trump does. And this is not because he just wants to go after Iran because of Israel. Trump now is removing the deep state system across the globe. Where do you think he's going next? Yes, we know about Cuba. Yes, we know about Colombia. I do believe the next target is Ukraine. That's where we're headed. And he pretty much set it all up. Remember, this is so he has all the leverage. And he does. He has all the leverage now. So this has nothing to do just with this one mission that he's doing. The mission, when you step back, is to realign the entire world away from the deep state players. Actually, basically destroy what the deep state players have created. He's basically doing a global realignment, like we said yesterday. And when you step back, you could see this is what he's doing. It's not these one little things, just like everyone thought, oh, let's just arrest a couple of people and everything will be fine. You really think the system is just Clinton? You think it's just Obama? You think that's it? Just arrest them and everything goes away? No, that's ridiculous. Why do you think Trump is across the world? Why do you think he's bringing them down? Why do you think he's exposing them? It's all part of their system. He told us, if you go back to when, I think it was March in 2020, and he let everyone know the deep state system is deeper than wide and wider than anyone could ever imagine. What the hell do you think that meant? You think it was just, oh, the pedo rings are deeper and wider? Or do you think that, holy crap, the entire world is the deep state system? The entire world is their criminal syndicate. It's not just in D.C. It's not just in a couple of states. It's the entire world. I think people now are starting to see this. And you can see every step of the way. The people of the different countries now are taking back control, just like in Argentina. And look what President Milei just did. He withdrew from the World Health Organization. So you're going to see nation after nation after nation remove itself from all these different organizations that the deep state players created. Remember, they were trying to create this new world order. And yes, you have a World Health Organization. You have the World Economic Forum. You have the World Bank. You have the United Nations. Trump now is removing us from all of this and exposing the fraud, the money laundering in this country. And not just in this country, but around the world, because this is how their system operates. They need the money. They need the money to operate their system, and the money goes across the world. Why wouldn't the money just be here in the United States? Because their criminal syndicate is across the world. And now it's being exposed a little bit at a time. So when you look at New York City, for example, New York City spends more per homeless person than the median New York City household earns, $81,705 per person. Do you really think all that money is going to the homeless? Because we have no homelessness now, right? It's all gone. No. Look at California. So do you think this is laundered? Absolutely. Joe Lane says the following. This is why Morandani, that's a good name, needs to raise the death tax on most people in New York City. Homelessness is a money laundering operation in blue states and cities. Over $81,000 spent per homeless per person. Where's all that money going? It's clearly not going to the homeless. The Democrats in New York, California, Illinois, Washington, etc. need the homeless population to grow so they can keep stealing money for their elections. It's a massive scam. And think about it. Everything that you're witnessing in this country and around the world has been a scam created by the deep state players. We've been living in a lie. I think Matt Von Swall pretty much sums it up. Just so we're all on the same page, there was never a housing problem. There was an illegal immigration problem. There was never a debt problem. There was a fraud problem. There was never a border problem. There was an enforcement problem. There was never a crime problem. There was a prosecution problem. There was never a homeless problem. There was a fraudulent NGO problem. There was never a failing school system problem. There was an indoctrination problem. There was never a funding problem. There was a theft problem. There was never a healthcare affordability problem. There was an illegal alien freeload problem. There was never an American dream problem. There was a Democrat problem, and that is absolutely true. And once again, do we really have a terrorism problem, or was it a deep state problem? The terrorists are the deep state foot soldiers. They created the world that you're living in today. Trump is destroying that world. That is what you're witnessing. And it looks like Scott Bessent's IRS and Kash Patel of the FBI, they're now launching a new initiative to investigate NGOs and nonprofits linked to domestic terrorism. They're going to root out and expose the NGOs and cut them off from their corrupt funding to Antifa and many, many other places. This is going to be very, very interesting as we move forward. Let's see how that all plays out. Now, the other thing that's very interesting, remember the candidate Kat Abu Ghazalia, who got slammed by the federal agents when she tried to obstruct ICE? Well, she lost her primary election for Congress in Illinois. So once again, you start to push these ridiculous agendas. The people see it, and the people say, well, we don't want that person in Congress, and they're out. And you can see that the deep state players, they're very, very panicked over ICE being near the polling centers because, again, they're trying to figure out what's going to happen. They're trying to figure out, can we use our illegals to vote? How can we do this? And it seems they are so panicked, they keep asking the same question over and over and over. Clandestine put this out and says, Slotkin is valuable to us because she always tells us what the Dems fear most. Here she is panicking again about the potential of ICE U.S. military being at a polling station during the midterms, which leads me to believe that that's Trump's plan. Excellent. And that is Trump's plan. I do believe so. And I do believe he's prepared and ready for this because, one, if, let's say, the Save America Act passes, once again, the illegals will be used at the polls to create chaos. If the Save America Act isn't passed and Trump doesn't issue the executive order, they will have their illegals come in and vote. If Trump proves that they rigged the election and the elections are insecure and it's a national security threat, and he issues an executive order and makes everyone show ID, the deep state players are going to use the illegals to cause chaos at the election polls. And what do we come to find out? That Chris Wray and Chris Krebs lied to the American public for 6 years. They knew Iranians breached U.S. election system in 2020, stole 100,000 identities, and then posted video online of the stolen data being used to create the UOCAVA ballots, and then hid this from the American people. So that's very interesting. Remember when Chris Krebs and Wray and all of them said that we had the most secure elections out there? Biden said we had the most secure elections. Well, nearly 6 years after the 2020 elections, we have proof of a successful breach by one of America's major enemies on our election infrastructure prior to the election day and during early voting. CISA officials released a report on October 30th, 2020, just days before the 2020 presidential election. The report was never made public, and it omitted critical facts about a successful breach of a state's election database days before the 2020 election. Here is the CISA report, which was hidden for several years and discovered after investigative reporter Yehuda Miller obtained the information through Freedom of Information Act request earlier this year. And according to this report, it says, yes, we had a breach. On October 22nd, 2020, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency and the Federal Bureau of Investigation published a joint cybersecurity advisory alert warning that Iranian advanced persistent threat actors are likely intent on influencing and interfering with the U.S. elections to sow discord among voters and undermine public confidence in the U.S. electoral process. APT actors are creating fictitious media sites and spoofing legitimate media sites to spread anti-American propaganda and misinformation about voter suppression. And basically, they hid this from the people. So basically, the elections were not secure. Then we have John Solomon, and Kenneth the Great put this out. John Solomon reports U.S. intel covered up China hacking voter rolls. China's state-owned firm still controls U.S. election software. Posts on Weibo show that them bragging about controlling systems in Detroit and D.C. The CCP controls election software in major U.S. cities, L.A., San Francisco, D.C., Detroit, and St. Louis. So that's very, very interesting. And Trump, he put this out and said the following, and he put this out in Truth. Britain had a meltdown when China hacked voter files, but U.S. intel kept it secret in America. So basically, U.S. intel hid the Chinese 2020 election meddling from Trump because they opposed his policy. That's what the memo says. So it was hidden from the people. So all of this was hidden from the people. Is this not a national security threat? I would think so. And think about it. They're now voting on the Save America Act, and it has advanced in the U.S. Senate 51-48. So for the Save America Act right now, you have effectively need 60 votes under the Senate current plan. but final passage itself only requires 51, and a workaround exists for a pure 51 vote path. So Democrats are filibustering to end debate and go to get a final up or down vote. Senate rules require 60 votes. Without that, the bill stalls. The final passage vote after cloture only needs 51 or 50 plus the VP tiebreaker. Republicans have 53 seats, so they fall short on cloture, and they know it. Representative Chip Roy and Mike Lee laid it out in a February 2026 letter. Bring the bill to the floor, keep a Republican quorum present, and refuse to file cloture. Force Democrats into a real talking filibuster. They have had to stand and speak nonstop. Senate Rule 19's two-speech limit. No senator can speak more than twice on the same question in the same legislative day without unanimous consent. Means they quickly run out of speakers or violate rules and lose the floor. Then the presiding officer calls the question, and it passes with 51 votes. No nuclear option needed. Senate Majority Leader Thune is not using the workaround. He's running extended debate talkathon to put Democrats on record. But he has said the votes unity aren't there for forcing the talking filibuster all the way through, except a cloture vote that fails at 60. Then the bill dies. Trump and conservatives are pushing hard for the 51 vote route, but leadership isn't going there yet. Under the path they're actually taking right now, it's the 60 vote wall. The 51 vote option is sitting there in the existing rules if Republicans decide to enforce it. So Thune is going down a different path. He's trying to do the 60 vote, saying, listen, I brought it up. We just couldn't get the votes. He could easily get the 51 votes. And Chip Roy and Senator Mike Lee laid it out, but he doesn't want to do it. Clandestine says, will the Save America Act pass the Senate? It appears unlikely at the moment, but the way I see it, Trump didn't come this far to be stopped at the goal line and leave the future of the republic to chance. Election security is national security, and Trump already told us that. Voter ID will be implemented, whether approved by Congress or not. Now, there are some serious optical advantages to getting the Dems on record opposing voter ID election security. So holding a vote that doesn't pass has value, but the Save America Act is not passing via 60 votes in the Senate. It's not passing unless there is a rule change to a simple majority via nuclear option or talking filibuster. This struggle could be exactly what Trump wants. I think Trump wants all the Dems on record opposing voter ID, despite 90% of Americans wanting voter ID. Then, once Trump has the optics he wants, and the American public have thoroughly seen that Dems oppose the will of the American people, he can then go to the executive order route. If the Senate GOP eventually grow some balls and pass the bill with a simple majority, fantastic. But I don't see it happening unless there's a massive and rapid shift in attitude from Thune and other Senate GOP leaders. So what's my point? Don't freak out if the Save America Act doesn't pass the Senate right away. Trump has a plan. He's not leaving the situation up for chance. And that is absolutely true. But again, the optics have to be incredible. The people have to see it play out. And the people have to understand that these people are going against the will of the people. Think about that for a second. Even the Democrats are going to see their own party go against the will of the people. So they see the rhinos are going against it. They see the D's are going against it. Will they all be for Trump using an executive order? Absolutely. Then Clandestine says, I think we're witnessing Trump and the U.S. military plan to save the world. And that's exactly what we're witnessing. Uproot illegitimate regimes and proxies, eliminate global rogue assets, return nations to their people, prevent World War III before it begins, consolidate sphere of influence, normalize relations, world peace. And that is it in a nutshell. And this is what Trump is doing. And you can see the deep state players, they're trying to stop it. Will they be able to? Absolutely not. Why? Because MAGA is a force and it's getting stronger and stronger every single day. And they know it. Why? Because the Patriots are in control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.